Hey, and we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. And you may be wondering, before we left for break, why we are getting involved or looking into the Pennsylvania 15th District Congressional race that's coming up. And I'll tell you why, because we have viewers in that area, number one. We have national viewers. And two, we're going to keep a close eye on what I call the establishment Republican snake in the grass, no matter where it's at and what district it's in. And this particular race is interesting to me because current Congressman, 15th Congressional District of PA, Charlie Dent, 14-year Congressman, has decided to retire and not seek an 8th term. A couple things about Congressman Charlie Dent. Dent did not support President Trump during the campaign. I really think, if I remember right, he said he could not vote for him and did not vote for him. Dent on the travel ban, Charlie Dent on the refugee ban, funding. Charlie Dent also opposed Obamacare, voted against the Obamacare repeal. Just if there was anything to say negative, these are my words, okay? Anything to say negative about the President of the United States or President Trump and obstruct the day-to-day and find his way on MSNBC or CNN, he did that. He's also the co-chair of what I call the very liberal group of the Republican Party, the Tuesday group. Now, saying that, Pennsylvania Representative 131st Legislative District, Justin Simmons is with us now, and he's seeking that seat now. Representative Simmons, are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to have you here. Let me just say this and let's start here. You basically, according to the morning call, I don't know if the exact date, you announced your state representative in Pennsylvania there, 131st District, but you announced on September 6th that you were seeking that office and you were going to oppose Charlie Dent. On the day you announced that, you were opposing Congressman Charlie Dent. And then on the 8th, he would not seek his 8th term. On September 7th, the very next day, the morning call comes out with Charlie Dent is not going to seek that office. How shocked were you? Did you know that was coming? And where's that put the race?
Well, we heard rumors that there was a possibility that he would retire. Did I think it would happen 36 hours after the announcement? No. We were blindsided by that. That being said, we were ecstatic because it was a victory, because it's, you know, you're going to get somebody more conservative in that seat now. But no, we were surprised at the how quick he decided to do that.
Well, I know sometimes, Representative Simmons, I know sometimes that these decisions do take a period of time and they're not that abrupt, but just that weekend prior to that, you guys held, well, maybe not yourself, there was a rally, the Trump Army, or I forget what it's called, right there in Allentown, and a couple hundred, if not more, came out in protest and in support of the president, but mostly also in protest of Charlie Dent. And there were so many speakers there, pretty powerful political voices in your district that have come out opposed to Dent. And do you think he just seen the writing on the wall? It was going to be an uphill battle for him?
Well, I think whenever he decided, I don't know, but I think he knew the writing on the wall. Charlie, he's been in office 26 years, never lost an election, and I think he knew if he went through with another term or 2 more terms that he'd have a really hard time winning in a Republican primary. Really hard time. You know, just with his voting record. I mean, his voting record's bad enough, but then publicly going on MSNBC and CNN and going to the Washington Post and the New York Times and being the go-to Republican to rip Donald Trump and to rip conservatives. I mean, I think he knew the writing was on the wall, especially because in Pennsylvania we have closed primaries.
I'm sorry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, but last heard you went out. In Pennsylvania, you have closed primaries, meaning meaning, and for those of you in Georgia here, we have open primaries. Pennsylvania is closed primaries, meaning you have to register for a party. So basically, in your primary, Democrats can't cross over, or Charlie, or as we call them here in my office, Charlie Dent's friends. So friends of Charlie. I'm sorry. I'll try to keep this a serious conversation, but realistically, Democrats cannot cross over and vote in the Republican primary, and that is one of the things maybe Charlie Dent was concerned about, is the actual Republicans themselves being disenchanted on what he has done in his last term here.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because I hear this a lot, and then I want to get into some of your positions. You yourself, much like many conservative Republicans, when Charlie Dent first ran for office, because you and I had this conversation a couple nights ago on the phone, and then you said this in other interviews. In the onset, you supported Dent when he first started running, much like many of the voices that we heard that weekend. They were in support originally of Charlie Dent. What happened there?
Well, I supported Charlie. I never was fully on board with Charlie. I mean, I always knew he was a moderate Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I always knew he was pro-choice and supported taxpayer funding for abortion. I'm unabashedly pro-life and don't believe taxpayer dollars should go towards abortion. So I've always had issues there. I just think as time went on, he became more liberal. He was fiscally conservative, at least somewhat, for a long time. And as he stayed in office, and as Obama became the president, and with debt ceiling deals and ideas to cut spending, Charlie just kept being in opposition to everything that we stand for. And I want to make clear, when I first ran for office in 2010, I challenged the most liberal Republican in the State House of Representatives here in Pennsylvania. And in that primary, Charlie Dent actually was opposed to me. He supported the more liberal Republicans. So I guess you could say Charlie's relationship and I has gone back and forth. But this isn't the first time I've taken him on when I thought he was wrong.
Well, I want to back up and say that, not that you have said, quote, you supported him. I think what I was looking at is his very first term, the very first time Charlie Dent ran for that seat. Most of the majority that was there 2 weeks ago for the rally, they were campaighting for Charlie Dent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I guess that's what I was saying is almost everybody that took the stage the other day or 2 weeks ago that are opposing Charlie Dent were campaigning for him early on. So I think that he looked and said, wow, I've lost a lot of support. Let me move past that. So this is now going to be an open seat, and there's already has Dent put up a candidate? Has he put up a candidate? And I say it like that because Charlie Dent's too connected, in my words, too connected with Washington, too connected with the moderate liberal side of the party, too connected with all the media groups just to say, I'm going home. Do you have an opponent, Ryan McKenzie, a state representative, and you two don't seem to have a really close track record together over in the State House in Harrisburg. Is that Charlie Dent's candidate?
Yes. I mean, Charlie, it leaked to the press, was it Thursday evening, I think around 7 o'clock, that Charlie was going to retire. Ryan McKenzie was on the radio at 9 a.m. the next day announcing, yes, Ryan McKenzie is the hand-picked successor for Charlie. Charlie's going to put his donor network and some of the local party machinery behind him.
So he was recruited. So you announce on this day, because I'll tell you, it sounds like a timeline of some sort of investigation show. You announce on one day, it's 72, not even 72 hours later, Charlie announces he's not going to seek re-election, but then Charlie puts up a candidate, my words, folks, my words, a candidate the next morning is on the radio announcing Ryan McKenzie. He's a state representative. Now, what differences do you have with McKenzie in the State House? I was reading some of the things concerning. In fact, the Morning Call says McKenzie's foray into the race, this is from the Morning Call, McKenzie's foray into the race sets up a public Hatfield and McCoy-like fight. Now, I know the Morning Call and how they like to enjoy their words. Hatfield and McCoy-like fight between the two Lehigh Valley politicians. He and Simmons have had a quiet, simmering rivalry locally and in Harrisburg for 7 years. So could you comment on the Morning Call statement there with you and McKenzie?
Yeah. Ryan and I work together in Harrisburg on a lot of good issues. The difference between Ryan and I is Ryan is establishment and I'm not. I got my foray into politics, as I stated earlier, by taking on a liberal Republican. I took on the party and I took on the establishment. Ryan McKenzie, when he came into politics, his dad was the former chair of the party. Ryan was very connected, and when he first ran for state house, we had the 134th district that was originally State Representative Doug Reichley's district, and Doug Reichley ran for judge and won. So what happens is, when Doug resigned to become judge, there was a special election, and the party hierarchy and the establishment greased the skids for Ryan. They cleared the field in a special election for him. He hasn't had an opponent actually since. That was in the 2012 election. Ryan, the biggest difference is Ryan is part of the establishment of the Pennsylvania Republican Party. And to me, that's a big problem, because in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Republican Party structure is very moderate, and when you're beholden to that structure, you get many of the kind of Republicans that Pennsylvania is known for, whether it's Arlen Specter, whether it's some of these congressmen in the Philadelphia suburbs, a very moderate to liberal Republican. And the issue in this race is Ryan McKenzie is going to be beholden to these same people, and he's going to be expected to vote the same way. And I think with the election of Donald Trump, I think that has blown everything up. I think it has shown that anti-establishment, conservative, populist candidates that are more grassroots oriented, that's the direction that the Republican Party needs to go in. And that's a direction I've always been in. I have a very strong base. I have a very strong network here in Pennsylvania, or in my district. We've always been independent of that party structure. And that's what the big difference is between Ryan McKenzie and I.
So you support the President Trump? You still support President Trump today?
No, of course.
And candidly, I'll ask you, because I know what Congressman Dent, you voted for President Trump?
I did.
Let me move on to this. Now, you said earlier, and I want to get this back in, you said that you feel strongly that Charlie Dent is Ryan McKenzie is Charlie Dent's handpicked candidate. That's my statement, but going off what you said, and you said he will mobilize his donor base, his establishment donor base. The big money will be pouring in for Ryan McKenzie from that side, and we will know by the money starting to pour in how much Dent is involved with this. So, but anyhow, that being said, do you have any national support coming your way? Club for Growth, anybody like that? Do you have anybody contacting you for some national support to help on your side of the campaign?
Yeah. I mean, someone reached out to me. I had a connection with a very conservative group in Harrisburg, and they got me in touch with a group in Washington, D.C. that I've been in discussion with since May. That has led into a discussion with about 6 or 7 other conservative groups in D.C. that I've been in contact with all summer, that are very interested in this race and are looking to support, a candidate that is, not establishment. We are going to be in discussions because a lot of the groups, we did think that, Charlie was going to be the opponent, now that things have changed. But we do have backing from some of those groups.
So some of the more conservative groups in D.C. you have heard from that feels this is an opportunity to turn the 15th District conservative, with Dent leaving and no longer going to be in D.C. So you've been contacted by several of those groups?
Yes.
All right, I gotta ask you a couple questions on some today issues. Funding for border wall security on the southern border, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Amnesty, the dreamers, DACA, and your position on immigration, and is there a window for amnesty if Justin Simmons had the last vote in the House?
No.
Well, I said they were yes or no. You can elaborate just a little bit. I mean, I will tell you this. You may be the first politician to come on here and took the yes or no literally. I got to give you credit for that.
No, look, we got to secure the border. People coming over the border and then being granted amnesty, we're then encouraging people to break the law. And then it's just going to continue that cycle, and then we're going to get into a debate with liberals about compassion, and it's never going to end. I'm not saying we're not a compassionate society, but at the end of the day, we need to secure the border, we need to build the wall, and amnesty is not a part of the equation. It's not fair to the people that have waited in line and have followed the law. It's not fair to the millions of Americans in this country that are underemployed, that are having a hard time looking for jobs, and we got to be looking out for our citizens. That's the big thing. So that's where my position is.
Well, as you know, Mr. Simmons, news changes daily. So yesterday, I probably did not know I would ask you this question this direct, but as of last night, in the Steve Bannon interview, former chief strategist in the White House. And I do know that he had, and still does, had Donald Trump's ear during the campaign, was on the plane with him 7 days a week. I know he had the president's ear in the first 7 months of his administration. So where I'm leading into is obviously some of his comments in the 60-minute interview last night are things he's directly heard out of the White House. Now, that being said, last night in his interview, I don't know if he let it slip, but do you believe in repealing Obamacare? Would you have supported the House bill to repeal Obamacare? And last night, Steve Bannon said, fix Obamacare. Is there a way to fix it? Would you support repealing it, a total repeal? Or like Steve Bannon said, is there a window to fix Obamacare?
I think you got to repeal it. I've always been someone that has believed in repealing Obamacare. It's a disaster. It actually doubles down on many of the issues that the insurance industry had prior to it being enacted. I think the answer really, and look, I know the votes aren't there and I know it's tough to get there, is we need to have a more free market approach to healthcare. I actually agree with many of some of Senator Rand Paul's ideas on repealing and replacing Obamacare. But I think you asked me if I would have supported what the House version was. I would have supported it to move the ball forward, because that was the promise that Republicans made to the American people. And then, and moving the process forward and being able to continue to work on it, I think would have been the right direction to go. I think some of the basic tenets that we should all agree on is allowing people to buy insurance across state lines, having health care savings accounts, and having tort reform. I think those are some big things we can do to help with insurance costs and to help the insurance industry. But I do think you have to repeal it. I really do.
Is you support the president's tax plan?
I do.
And
I do.
Is there anything, and myself, I don't think it's the end of the world if there was something, but totally up to you. Is there anything that's coming out of the Trump White House right now as far as policy, not just something he tweeted out maybe today, but as far as policy or how he looks at something or sending something over to the House that you would disagree on or wish he would look at it a different way or go a different direction?
Well, I didn't like the deal. I don't like the deal that he's made with the Democrats. I mean, I get why he did it. I do.
All right, well, I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt you because I want to give you an answer. But you come right out of the box and said, I don't like the deal he made with the Democrats, but I understand why he did it. Focus in on that for me just a little bit. And I think you probably were, but that struck with me. Focus in on that.
Focus in on that. Well, I think I don't like the idea of raising the debt ceiling without getting some concessions on spending cuts. But that's a principle I have. In terms of the politics of that, he knows, he's a smart guy, the president. He knows he wasn't going to get the Republicans to ever do that. The Republicans don't have the votes to agree that the sky is blue right now. They're that inadequate in Washington, the House and Senate Republicans. So, with regard to the disaster relief and, continuing to fund the operation of the government, the president decided that he had to do a deal with the Democrats. That being said, in terms of the long game and the political game, I think it was Donald Trump's warning across the bow to the Republicans to get their act together and to get them boxed in. I've heard that this, because I know Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell wanted to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe they wanted to do a debt ceiling increase and they wanted to fund the government till after the 2018 midterms because all they really care about is a re-election. And I think this, in the president's mind, boxes them in to try to do a deal for a budget and for a debt limit increase before the primaries this spring, which in terms of a political move, I think it's brilliant.
Well, Representative Simmons, I myself think there's I hate to use billions of dollars in setting optics, but I think there's a lot of optics there. Here's a picture of your leadership. Current leadership, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, and here's a picture of what your leadership could look like. And I really think, and there's so many different ways we can go with this and don't have time. So I guess I'll ask you candidly, what do you think of the leadership in the House, Paul Ryan, at this time? We won't take Mitch McConnell to task because you're not trying to go that direction right now. But what do you think about the leadership in the House and what they have done? And would you support Paul Ryan, or would you be open to a different House Speaker?
Oh, I think I'd be open to a different House Speaker. I mean, they haven't done anything. They haven't governed. They have complete control of the government. It's an embarrassment. I mean, Republicans, I think, for a few years under President Bush had complete control of the government, but prior to that, I don't think Republicans have had complete control of the government since President Calvin Coolidge. I mean, it's a very rare opportunity that Republicans have right now, and I don't care if they didn't expect to win the election. For lack of a better word, you want to say to them, man up. Figure out how to get an agenda passed. When you get into politics, I can tell you, even being in the State House, one of the things you dream of is having complete control. You have an opportunity to enact your agenda without having to go across the aisle. So Paul Ryan has completely failed in that aspect. That being said, I do think a big issue that the Republicans have is that they don't have a conservative majority. They have a Republican majority because of guys like Charlie Dent in this Tuesday group. But if you look, we got Charlie's now retired. I think there's a congressman in the state of Washington who's retired that's a moderate. So we have a really good opportunity this election to kind of send in reinforcements via the primary to get people that are going to vote for a conservative agenda and vote to, help the president get the agenda that 63 million people voted for last election. So I absolutely would be open to a new speaker.
Well, before we go, our time is running out. I have two pretty direct questions, and you don't have to give yes or no. I just want to keep them in a short window. You support the Constitution entirely?
I do.
Okay. Usually that should not take a conservative long. That should just be a yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. And the other one that obviously you always have, I think you always have to ask, the Second Amendment and your stance on the Second Amendment, and what, how do you see the Second Amendment for your district, the 15th district of Pennsylvania, if elected?
I'm pro Second Amendment. I mean, just 100%. I have an A rating from the NRA. In Pennsylvania, I've supported the Castle Doctrine. Was a co-sponsor of it and voted for it. I have voted to. One of the things we voted for is there's an issue with municipalities enacting their own gun laws, which is clearly unconstitutional. I voted for a piece of legislation that allows citizens to sue these municipalities and to have reimbursement for the lawsuit to protect their Second Amendment rights. So I'm very proud of my record of the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner myself. I'm a, what's the word here, like Scalia. I look at the Constitution written as is. I don't think it's what did Scalia say? It's not a living and breathing
he said
document.
No.
It's dead.
Scalia said he liked his Constitution dead.
Exactly, it's dead. And that's how I
actually I have that book. So funny you say that. I have that book. It's a very great book. All of his opinions, but he said he liked his Constitution dead. So
yep, that's how I am.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you very much. I will close with this just to reiterate something. This is, we've been talking with 131st State Legislative District in Pennsylvania, Justin Simmons, who is seeking the open seat now from Representative Charlie Dent in the 15th District of Pennsylvania. My words, and I would like for you to say yes or no on that, or how you feel to close. Immediately after Congressman Dent announced his retirement, State Representative Ryan McKenzie announced his candidacy, and we feel here, or we are told, sources tell us, that this is a Charlie Dent handpicked Pennsylvania state establishment Republican. How close am I? Correct? All right. Did I get it?
I'll end with this. If Charlie had a farewell party last night down, and Ryan McKenzie was there, so that's all you need.
Repeat that. Your cell phone went muffled just a little bit.
I'm sorry. Charlie Dent had a farewell party last night in Allentown, and Ryan McKenzie was there, so that's all you need to know.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And as the race continues, we want to invite you on anytime to say hello. And we will have this clipped and on our YouTube channel where you can share all over the Northeast up there in your area. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, sir. That has been our interview this morning with Justin Simmons, not congressman, wishes to be, has aspirations to be congressman of the 15th District of PA. Now, I think, and give me the thumbs up or down, Rich. I'm seriously asking this before we close this interview because I want it in the clip. Did we start a very good segment here of a series of exposing the snake in the grass? Did we do that? I got it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, how about that Steve Bannon interview? And yes, I still have this, and it's Sam's fault. Yes. Sam keeps wanting to know if the governor is called to tell me that she can go home. No! Take us a break, Richie.